That is the value that we have. Now, remember, this is us over here. This is us over here. And when he steps back and he's telling this story, he really is talking to this crowd over here. He's responding to their muttering. He's responding to their attitude. He's responding to their judgment. Okay? And these two stories that we just looked at set up the main course. Verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons. He had 2 sons. He had a good son. He had a bad son. Good crowd, bad crowd. Catching on the drift here? He had 2 sons. The younger one, the bad kid, sorry for those that are the youngest kid in the family, but this is just a story, okay? The younger one, the bad kid, said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate. Give it to me now." And you know what? Father graciously does it. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, including what father had given him, and he set off for a distant country and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. He was broke. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. Pause right there. As soon as that word comes out of Jesus' mouth, you got to understand that over here, there's this big flashing sign that starts flashing above their heads. Kind of picture the whole cartoon thing with the bubble, and you begin to see their thoughts going on. Well, here's what's in their thoughts. Flashing sign: unclean, 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 unclean. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. You see, pigs were unclean. That they understood that. That's what they were taught. That's what's in the Word. And Jesus is telling this story about this younger kid that demands his inheritance, squanders everything away, and all of a sudden now he's working with pigs. Unclean, 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 unclean. Verse 16, he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Now he's in such desperation. He's in such a bad place that not only is he hanging out with pigs, not only is he feeding them their food, but now he's looking at that food and he's longing to eat it. Unclean, 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 unclean. And then he started thinking about home. Then he started thinking about Father. He started thinking about what it was like back in the old days. Verse 17, when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare? And here I am starving to death." And he begins to formulate. He begins to devise his plan on how he's going to get back under the roof of Father's house. Verse 18, I will set out. I'm going to go back to my father, and this is what I'm going to say to him. Father, I have sinned against heaven. I have sinned against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So, please, would you just make me like one of your hired men? Just make me a servant. Make me a slave. If you would just make me a slave, I'd at least have food to eat and a roof over my head. And he got up and he headed home. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him, and he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Pause. I have read this story hundreds of times, preached on it I don't know how many times. And yesterday as I'm reading through this, I noticed something that I've never noticed before. And it's not something that's in this story, but it's something that's left out. And I got to tell you that I think it's a really important thing that's left out. In fact, it blows my mind. I'm still trying to process exactly what this means. But there's a critical thing left out, and it's left out right here. This guy was hanging out with pigs. Now, I am not a pig farmer, and I've never been on a pig farm, but I have seen Charlotte's Web. Once. Okay, a couple times. And I know that it's dirty. I know that it's filthy work. And I know that it's stinky. This guy was living there. He was living in it. He was wallowing in it. And he was in such bad condition that he was longing to eat the food that they were eating. Not only is that reality, then you've got the whole unclean factor from the Jewish perspective. And he was on a long journey home. When he crests that hill, Father sees him. Father runs out to him. Father does not stop 10 feet away from him and says, "Hey, so glad you're home. Go take a shower. Go bathe, and then I'll hug you. Go bathe, and then I'll embrace you. Go bathe, and see, you've got to get clean first, and then I can touch you. You've got to get clean first, and then I'll embrace you. You've got to get clean first, then I'll kiss you." That's left out. It's not in there. Father sees him crest the hill, and he runs, and he embraces him. He embraces all that he was about. He embraces everything that he was at. I mean, it's got to be all over him. No sign of cleansing. Father embraces him, kisses him, puts his mouth on him. You've been struggling with your self-worth? Just try to fathom the love that this is telling us exists. Try to fathom the height, nor the depth, nor the width, nor the length of the love that Father has for us. He comes running, and he gives a full embrace. Doesn't stop there. Verse 21, then son said to him, so here's this, he's been working on this, okay? He's had lots of time. He's been going through how he's going to say this to Father. I mean, he's been looking forward to this moment for quite some time, how he was going to beg for Father's forgiveness and to allow him to become a slave so that at least he could have a bed to sleep in, a roof over his head, and food to eat. Father is smothering him with hugs and kisses, and son is trying to get out this speech that he's been working on. Father, I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Father doesn't even let him get out the rest of the story, the request. In fact, Father doesn't even address the words that are coming out of son's mouth. Father says to the servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast. Let's party. Okay, what are these things that are being put on son? What is the point of this? These words are not just coming out of Jesus' mouth for no reason. These things have meaning, okay? Bring the best robe. Again, no shower, okay? No bath, no baptism here. We're talking about straight out of the pig trough on the street, right into Father's embrace. Father says, bring the best robe, put it on his back. There is this image of majesty that Father wants to clothe us in. He wants to clothe us in the majestic